before this organized national movement from 1885, what Indians were doing as a result of this British colonialism, they were either revolting, either it was in the form of local revolts, or it was in the form of revolt in 57, or they were using this social reform movements. Okay. And after these two methods, they found that they are ineffective. One, for example, Raja Ramohan Roy did so many things for this political domain, economic domain, but still he was not as that successful. There were successes he got. For example, this Metcalfe, Charles Metcalfe, became the liberator of the press after his this after his promotion, said ki we should liberate the press, but most of the things were still left on. So these middle class who got educated, okay, who got western education, they started thinking about the third way to liberate India. That was this in the form of organized political movement. Okay. So they started forming the organization, and the initially it was not having this mass movement, it was not having the momentum. So slowly and slowly, these people started forming the organization. And earlier the objectives were very parochial in nature. For example, Surendranath Banerjee formed this Indian Association for this increasing the age of Indian civil services. Okay. This Dada Banerjee formed his East India Association, I guess, for this uh, promotion of this or this exposing this economic drain. Okay. Similarly, this Rana Day may, I guess he formed Pune Sarvajanik Sabha and all, etc., etc. So earlier the interests were parochial in nature. Gradually, they all of the people understood that these people are not here to uh, these people, this white man burden theory is actually a myth, you know, and these people can also be beaten down, as we saw in these various revolts. For example, in the Punjab revolt, or in the Afghan revolt, Afghan wars, or this in the when the this Italians were expelled by the Ethiopians, or this Russians were expelled by the Japanese. You know, slowly and slowly, Indians started gathering the momentum and the confidence. So they started forming this organized movement, again, in the form of this political organization. So we should first understand how to organize the people, how to organize, arouse the feeling of nationalism among the people. For example, you can relate this with in the today's context. How, if let's say, suppose this corona is ongoing, and you have to bring all the people together, you have to arouse a common feeling among them. How will you do that? For that, you will have to first of all make them realize that all of them are getting affected. Okay. So this was the first thing, that foreign domination, all the people started understanding that all of them are getting impacted, and all the classes and all the sections are having the conflict of interest with the Britishers. Okay. Then after making them realize, you'll have to make a unification thing in the politically or administratively. For example, there should be a uniform legal code, or there should be a uniform this court process, and in this British courts and all. Okay. And economically also, there should be a single market. If any one area is getting impacted, then the unified market and all is impacting the other region of the entire nation. Okay. So likewise, you'll have to develop a feeling of this political and administrative unification, and that will develop a social feeling of unification. So that was a second method. That was a second reason why this nationalism rose up. Then third reason was obviously social religious responses. Okay. Which these educated intelligentsia they just started judging this Indian society from the Western prism, and they started observing that our inherent weakness in the form of this social evils or the religious evils, they are actually responsible for this our subjugation. So they also promoted this new thinking of rationalism and liberalism, which they started thinking that we also have the capacity, and we should remove our ills to prevent the Britishers to colonize us. Then the fourth thing will be, you'll have to ensure that all the people are connected, and for that you'll have to develop this transport and communication. Nowadays this is not done through this social media platforms, and earlier it was this railways and all, post or telegraphs, through which the people were exchanging their ideas. And since the for example, let's say Dada Banerjee is having wrote his own book of poverty and British rule. Okay. This RC the Throat Economic History of India. So people were writing their ideas in the form of book, and that those books those ideas need to be propagated amongst the masses and amongst the entire. For example, he wrote a book in, let's say, Maharashtra. Those ideas need to be spread across India, in central province also, Bengal also, Madras also, everywhere. So for that, this transport and communication helped to propagate the ideas to get through the railways and all, because all of them were traveling through the same class, same this bogie. And it also challenged this caste system also, because uh, it was on form of where all the people were sitting together, है ना. So they forgot their primordial identities. So it also challenged this caste system and all, ठीक है. Apart from this uh, giving apart from this giving rise to nationalism, ठीक है. So this question actually came in mains also, how railways was, what was the impact of railways. Yeah, I think it came in 2023. Then the fifth reason was again this, you have to develop a literature. If you do not develop a literature, then how will you convey to the people that what things are going on, है ना. So they started writing their ideas, है ना. This economic critique was written by these moderates, and this particularly actions of this Lytton and Lytton, Dufferin, and etc. were written by this, let's say, Amrit Bazar Patrika. They were writing about Lytton, this reactionary policies of Lytton, and for example, Arms Act, Vernacular Press Act, etc., etc. So they started writing about these things and propagating how this foreign domination is in conflict with our own interests. For example, the interest of capitalist class, middle class, each and every class, okay. So they were having the conflict of interest, and since if any if most of the people will be having conflict of interest, and they start developing a feeling that we all have a common enemy. And for example, let's say COVID is a common enemy to all of us, so we will start developing a common feeling of unification, that we all people have to fight together, else this common enemy will beat all of us. So then the sixth reason was obviously this Western thought, and this, for example, this American Revolution ideas or French Revolution ideals in the, for example, Thomas Paine, Rousseau, or this other people of this, the intellectuals of American Revolution and French Revolution. They gave the ideas of rationalism, liberalism, humanism, or this social contract theory, etc., etc. They also gave the idea that government is for the people, and they should have this responsible government. Likewise, these ideas developed slowly. These ideas developed, and then the feeling of nationalism, and this feeling of organizing a entire India in the form of organized political movement, this feeling rose up. Then the sixth, then the these were the background factors, है ना. Like we studied in revolt in 57. Now there were some background factors, and over and above that, some factors will act as a precipitating factors. For example, those will be the immediate factors, है ना. So the policies of Lytton acted as immediate factors, which led to the foundation of this Indian National Congress in 1885, or this other pre-Congress organizations also. For example, Pune Sarvajanik Sabha, Madras Association, or Indian Association, etc., etc. So Lytton's policies, the four policies are very notorious one. For example, this Royals Title Act, okay, this Queen, he organized Delhi Darbar when this I guess southern and central India was going through the famine in 76. Okay. So this Queen took the title Empress of India, or Kazre Hind, है ना. And during this, they organized the Delhi Darbar and wasted a lot of money when they said Central India and they were facing the famine. So people started developing a feeling that government is not for government is not for us, and they are not following our interests. They are just wasting our money, and they are wasting the money, and they are not fulfilling our interests. Then the second notorious thing was this Vernacular Press Act. He brought out, he saw that this press people, for example, this Roy also, or and many other people. For example, Amrit Bazar Patrika was the famous one. Okay, this Patrika was written by this Motilal Ghosh and Shishir Kumar Ghosh. Okay, so they were specifically targeting the reactionary policies of this Governor General, especially the Lytton. So Lytton brought out this Vernacular Press Act in 78. Okay, there were two other names of this act. Can anyone tell me what were the two other names? Gagging Act and better control of Oriental languages, ऐसे कुछ करके था. ठीक है. You can go and see that. So Lytton brought out this Vernacular Press Act to control the press and to control the writings which were against him, which were instigating the people against him. So the specific target was Amrit Bazar Patrika, and Amrit Bazar Patrika overnight changed its language from English to Hindi, English to regional language, because in this Vernacular Press language was it changed its language from regional language to the English. Vernacular Press Act was saying that Oriental languages cannot write against this governor, English Empire. Okay, so they changed the language to English, and made this provision null and void, because that provision could not apply to this Patrika. Okay. Then the third thing was this ICS, Indian Civil Service. Okay. Already it was very tough. The exam was held in London, and in Greek language also, and the syllabus was also very difficult. So in this situation, this Lytton reduced the maximum age of civil services to 19 years. Nowadays we start we graduate in 21 years and start appearing. Okay, so now at that time he reduced the maximum age to 19 years. So that was a pain factor for this educated people who wanted to join the civil services, because it was a commodity services. So uh, this actually showed to the middle class people that English is they are not fulfilling their interest also. So Surendra Nath Banerjee at that time, he qualified for the examination. He qualified the examination, but he did not join, and he started his own association in the form of Indian Association, where he was advocating for increasing the maximum age for civil services. And eventually, this age was also increased in 1885, I guess 1886, where the Charles Edson Commission recommended to increase the age. Then the fourth provision was this Arms Act, which was brought in 78. It was targeted towards this Anglo-Indian and this the people. They cannot carry arms without any license, and it was specifically targeted to the Anglo-Indians, and it was not applied to the Europeans. So that was a discrimination factor. English were always discriminating against us, and that's why we say that they were perpetual foreigners. Okay. However, after Lytton, there was a person who came, Ripon. Lytton was from 76 to 80. Ripon came from 80 to 84. He brought some liberal policies and overturned some of the decisions of Lytton. For example, he deleted this Vernacular Press Act. Okay? And or he changed this Vernacular Press Act in 82. Okay? Then there was a controversy regarding Ilbert Bill also in 83. Okay? Then in 83, this controversy was that Indian people should be tried with the jury of India, Indian judges only. Okay? It should not be the case that a European jury is trying the Indian people. So Ripon was in the favor of this, but this fundamental objective got diluted because of the opposition from the uh, other British people. So this was also an evidence that Britishers were following this racial arrogance theory. They were believing that Indians were subordinate to them, so they should always be they should not be given the parity, and they should always be tried with the English people. And all obviously, if the English people are trying the Indian people, then this they will be discriminating us. Yeah. Then there was this one more progressive act of Ripon, Indian Factories Act 81. Okay. He brought this one labor reforms was this Indian Factory Act 81, and second was this Indian Factory Act 91, I guess. Okay. So these were targeting this primarily to the Indian industrialists. Okay. And they were not applied to the European industries, because the primary objective of this was not for the labor reforms, but for targeting that Indian industry should not be able to grow, at the competition, and give the competition to European industries. So they brought this labor legislation as a form of that we are helping you, but eventually the fundamental objective was that Indian capitalism should not grow. There were many provisions that it was applied to this more than 100 people, and that says more less than children of less than 7 age, they should not be employed. Children of 7 to 12 age, they should work for maximum 9 hours, and they should be given at least 4 months 4 days of holiday, 4 holidays a month. Okay. Then this another provision was this hazardous factories should be fenced. There were many provisions, but all those were targeted towards Indian capitalism. So these were the fundamental provision. You can learn this. I during my time, this question is important for mains also, so I learned this in the form of Pariniti. Pariniti's education is fast and lyrical. Pariniti stands for press, education stands for western thought, fast stands for foreign domination, A for administrative unification, S for social religious reform, T for transport and communication, lyrical, Lee for Lytton, Ripon, RI for Ripon. Okay, so I remember this. So you have to remember these 7 points. These are the most important points, and because they cover the entire thing. Because first you have to develop the feeling of that they all having one common enemy, and all one common enemy is developed through this particular means, and they are also having the internal weaknesses, and then these ideas need to be propagated amongst the masses, these ideas need to be shared amongst all the people. Then what ideas need to be shared, education and all, and then the immediate reasons of these written policies. Okay. Then this we should also learn this some pre-congress organizations, hai na? I guess some questions have been asked in prelims regarding this. I guess this question was asked, Indian East India Association, or this Pune Sarvajanik Sabha was asked. Okay. So Bengal was the primary center where this renaissance occurred, hai na? We as we saw this in the social religious reform movement, because this Raja Ram Roy was the father of Indian Renaissance. So over in the Bengal, we saw this Renaissance movement where this educated elite rose up and they started questioning the British policies. But the Bombay and Madras were also some centers. Okay? So in the Madras, these are the years in which I have written in the pink. In the Madras in 1884, there was a organization, Madras Mahajan Sabha, whose this these were the founders. Okay? These were the founders. Let me see who were the founders. Can anyone tell who were the? इसका तो मेरे को पता है, बॉम्बे में बॉम्बे प्रेसिडेंसी एसोसिएशन, it was set up in 85 and it was this Badruddin Tyabji, Firoz Shah Mehta, KT Telang, and this Pune Sarvajanik Sabha was MG Ranade. It was set up in 67, and in Bengal this was 76. Indian Association, it was of Surendranath Banerjee to increase the age of civil services. Because you just have to identify the one common objective, one basic objective of all these organizations, and the year of establishment and the people who established them. The more than this, it is not required. This is the basic thing. Indian League was established by Shishi Kumar Ghosh in 75. East India Association was this Dada Banerjee in 66. Okay? And this Bengal, these were the two associations formed. Zamindar Association, Bengal British India Association in this around 50s, and both of them got clubbed in the form of British India Association. And this after Roy died in 33, so in 36 the associate of Roy formed an organization, Bangladesh Prakashik Sabha. ठीक है, ये विराघवचारी है शायद, और ये आई एम फॉरगेटिंग द पर्सन, सुब्रमण्यम अय्यर, आनंद चरलू. ठीक है. So you have to remember this. More than this is not required. This is more than sufficient. Year of establishment, because they may ask it in the form of chronology also, that arrange them in the chronological order, or no, till now UPSC has asked who were the founders of this organization. So you have to remember the name of the founders also, and years also, and the one fundamental objective of each of these organizations. Okay? For example, Dada Banerjee, he must have associated with this, must be associated with this, raising the voice of Indian concern or the economic drain. Okay? Then there's MG Ranade, Pune Sarvajanik Sabha. So what was the one single objective? So read that from this spectrum. With respect to this Indian National Congress, you have to remember there is a one appendix given at the last page, in the last of the spectrum. For over there, you have to remember three things. That which year, for example 1905, this Banaras session was held. Who was the president? Gokhale was the president, I guess. Okay? Then this Gokhale, what was the event? They launched this Swadeshi movement, Swadeshi boycott movement. Okay? Similarly, 1906, who was the president? I guess Naroji was the president. And what was the event? They brought out the four objectives: Swadeshi, Swaraj, national education, and one more. Okay? So this is the three things you have to remember for the most of the sessions. Mostly all the sessions are important, but some of the sessions will be redundant. Important sessions will be covered through the story mode. For example, 1917 session is important. 1920 session was the biggest session. Okay? Then this 1929 session, Lahore session, is important. Likewise, so there are some of the important sessions. And also you need this coaching people, they also ask who were the this Muslim president, who were this European president. So you have to find out who were those people. Just observe the appendix, you will find out. Then now we'll start with the moderates. Who were the moderates? See, we were either revolting to the wars, or we were forming this social religious reform movements. Then we started forming these small organizations for particular parochial objectives. And after this, we started this educated elite. They thought that we should form an organization, although there is this myth that it was formed by the Britishers and all, but that is a myth. It was formed by the educated elite who got whose objective were to make it aware to the people that the objectives are not good for them. And the British rule is British rule is both good and bad, and they wanted to change the bad rules of the Britishers. So they believed in this constitutionalism. Constitutionalism means that they will advocate for the change in the British rule, but through the constitutional means only. They will not bypass the constitutional means. For example, let's say this Indian Council Act 61 was out. At that time, they were not given the right to discuss, or this legislature was not given the control over executive. So they will not bypass these boundaries, and they will always stay in the Lakshman Rekha of the constitution. This is the fundamental thing. Second thing was they believed in gradualism. Gradualism means they thought that they knew that this freedom and all, the Swaraj and all, will not come very very early. It will take time, all the changes will take time. So they thought that things will gradually improve, and they were not like they were not impatient people, they were the patient people who thought that the things will gradually come. Then they were also believer of this liberalism, that they also wanted some sort of self governance, but that self governance was not in the form of Swaraj. They thought they believed that we should get self governance, but within the imperial framework. For example, that head will always be a monarch, let's say head of the government will always head of the Indian government will always be responsible to British Parliament, and British Parliament, or this, let's say, monarch in the British, okay. But Indian government will also have its own this self governance principles, and how to govern Indian, for example, local issues, for example, health, education, and all, taxation and all. But they should be always ultimately responsible to the imperial government in the British, okay. So this is what this was their objective. How they advocated the change through this three piece: petition, prayer, and propaganda. They used to petition, they used to do prayers, they used to uh, establish the propaganda through these pamphlets and press and literature. They also thought that it is an act of providence, that since India was having these loopholes within the social and political and economic domain, so they thought that it is an act of providence, that and Britishers are there to help us, but at the same time they are causing some of the problems, and those problems need to be solved using these methods, using these means and these ideology. And however, they also had this full faith in the justice system of British, that they will bring the change, even though that change will be small, but they will bring the change. And till then they expected that till we people are trained in the self governance setup, till we are trained in how to govern ourselves, okay. Till then Britishers should control us, they should be an imperial framework till we are completely trained for the self governance things, and what was this, that it was formed by this elite people of anglicized class, who were this modern educated people. And they were having this annual conferences. It was not like a regular feature of an organization which was complete always active. It was a organization which it was not like election commission is active all the time, it was like this finance commission who will be set up after some of the years, for example, finance commission set up every 5 years. This they were having this their sessions after every 1 year. They will come and meet, they will discuss for 5 6 days or 10 days at max, and then they will disperse. So this was the sort of thing. It was not a continuous organization, it was a organization which was having continuous breaks after 10 15 days, okay. Then this they had some of the demands, and these demands are actually important for this mains, because most of the UPSC is always asking what were the contribution of moderates, or what were they demanding. So it is important, and this thing is important for prelims as well as mains both, okay. So what were the constitutional demands of them? uh, Sir, I think petition, prayer, protest, okay. Then this what were the constitutional demands? Constitutional demands was कि they were expecting the self governance and a self governance framework, but that should be within the imperial framework. It should not be the case that they are getting the complete Swaraj. The complete Swaraj was never their aim. And also they believed that they had the full faith in the justice system of these Britishers, so they lacked. And also third thing was they lacked the they lacked the faith in the capacity of the masses. They had faith in the Britishers but not in the masses, ठीक है, capacity of masses, ठीक है. And this first constitutional thing was they want, for example, this Indian Council Act 61 was passed, this Council Act 92 was passed. So over here this was the, let's say, ministers, and these were the Viceroy Executive Council who were the ministers, and these were the MPs and additional MPs who were not the ministers, and this was the entire let's say parliament, okay. Okay. Now this executive was doing the things on their own, this legislature, these people who were the MPs, sort of MPs, they were not able to control the executives, so these people wanted that we should be having some control over executive. For example, executive is asking for the budget, budgetary thing, they are asking for the money. So these legislative people or these MPs should first of all this element of election should be introduced, because these people were nominated most of the times. They wanted that the MPs, who they should, instead of getting nominated, they should be elected by the people. And secondly, after getting elected, they should have some powers with respect to this executive to control them, and in the form of, let's say, budget. They have to pass the budget, so we should have the powers to discuss the budget, and we should also have the powers to vote, okay. Actually they got the powers to discuss, but they did not get the powers to vote till 92, I guess, okay. Then they also wanted this executive council, है ना. There was no Indians in the executive council. They want that Indians should get added to it. They demanded two Indians in this viceroy executive council, and actually one got added in uh, 1919, है ना. This SP Sinha got added, I think 1919 only. Montagu Kelsom report से ही add हुआ था, ठीक है. And this executive, I'm not wrong ना, 1909, ठीक है. So they got added through this, and this executive council na, this executive council is in India, not in London. I'm not talking about the governor, this council, legislative, or let's say the parliamentary setup, uh, or this governmental setup is of India, not of London, है ना. For example, let's say this, I was talking about this vernacular press act. So vernacular press act, who would have passed this? British parliament or this Indian legislative governance, this legislative council? Who was responsible for passing this vernacular press act or this arms act, है ना. And who was responsible for passing this charter acts or this government of India 1958 act? Who were responsible for which act? बताओ. This should be clear that which government we are talking about, Indian government or this government at London. Vernacular by Indian council. Indian council is the wrong word, Indian legislative council, because Indian council is that it was present in London, who were the associates of this, matlab, advisory body of this secretary of state. ब्रिटिश पार्लियामेंट, है ना, ब्रिटिश वर पासिंग दिस 1858 बेटरमेंट एक्ट, ठीक है, और दिस चार्टर एक्ट्स, ऑल दिस कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल एक्ट्स विच वी स्टडी ना, फॉर एग्जांपल इन इंडियन काउंसिल एक्ट 92, और दिस गवर्नमेंट मोंटेगो कैल्सॉन रिफॉर्म और मोरले मिंटो रिफॉर्म्स, ऑल दीज थिंग्स, they were passed by British Parliament. But these internal acts, for example, let's say Bentic Act, the Sati wala Act, ठीक है, Widow Remarriage Act, or this Vernacular Press Act, or let's say this Arms Act, है ना, Ilbert Bill, all the Ilbert Bill तो चलो अलग है, लेकिन the acts which were passed for the internal Indian administration ना, those were passed by this legislative body, ठीक है. And within this legislative body, obviously there were some people who were the ministers. For example, we call them the viceroy executive council. There was one person viceroy, and there were associates, the helpers of this viceroy, ठीक है. And then we also had some MPs, है ना. And this legislative council got expanded with time, है ना. Earlier this we had this setup of through regulating act 73, I guess it was 3+1, then it got 4+1, and slowly we started expanding. But these legislative people, they got added in 61, Indian council at 61, and the half of these people should be non-officials. For example, non-official means, first of all, these people were nominated. Now, these people were nominated. They were not elected. That is what the moderates were demanding, that they should get elected. Second thing was, half of these people, let's say they had provision that 6 to 12 people, any number between 6 to 12, they should get added in the legislative council. And when they are added now, let's say they decided to add 10 members, and out of those 10 members, 5 should be persons who are non-officials. Non-officials means that they are not holding any office. They should not be holding any office. They should be a person just like the private member. They are not holding any office, ठीक है. And it was not compulsion to nominate the Indians in this office, है ना. मतलब it was not any compulsion to nominate Indians in this legislative council. These Britishers are having their own discussions. And also this one member got, for example, this Charter Act 1833, they got added, this legislative this law member na, Macaulay 33 Act got Macaulay added to executive council. This was expanded in 61, है ना, and one more member was added, and that was done by this British Parliament, ठीक है. Now again this was passed, and so they demanded these things, and after they were demanding, so this council act 92 came, and over there they also added one more. It was earlier viceroy plus 5%, then it became viceroy plus 6%. One more member was added. Obviously this member will be added by London Parliament, okay. And they increased this MPs from earlier the limit was 6 to 12, this they increased this limit to 10 to 16, okay. And again this half of the member and all those things, but they increased the powers of these people. They increased some powers, they got the power to discuss, okay. But the voting power, I guess they got very, very late, okay. All those things are a comparison thing. I'll share the table, okay. I told you na that is very confusing, so that has to be remembered, because those things are let's say very easy, although confusing, but very easy to score, okay. So you have to remember all those things. I'll share the table. Now administrative demands were, for example, this services, they were very elite in nature na. For example, this Lytton reduced the age to 19 है ना. So they were demanding that the age should be increased, maximum age should be increased, ठीक है. Or there should be Indianization. For example, the Indian people are not read, obviously, because exam was held in London. It was held in the Greek language. The syllabus was also not this open to Indian people है ना, etc, etc. There were so many limitations. So they demanded that Indianization of services should be done. Why Indianization? What will, how this will help? Because obviously this will help in to reduce the drain of health. Since Indian people will be employed, they will demand less salaries, or they will work for the people of India, है ना. They will work for the Indian nation, है ना, the India, and not the Britishers. Earlier, this ICS people, they were working for this interest of Britishers serving in the India. So this Charles Edson Commission, this Edson Commission in 86 was appointed, and this commission actually recommended to increase the age from 19 to 23, and it was actually done in 92. Okay. I said wrong. It was the commission was set up in 86, but it was actually done in 92. Okay. Then they also they also demanded simultaneous exam should be held. For example, the exam was held in London, and so they were demanding that exam should be held in India also. I guess this was done in 1920s. 1922 first exam was held in India. ठीक है. Montagu Califord reform से provision आया था ये वाला. ठीक है, 1919 वाले से. Then this, they were also demanding this. I told this na in when I was teaching these policies of Governor General over here. ठीक है कि these, since they were fighting so many wars है ना, so they 50% of the budget was spent in this defense things है ना. So they were demanding that this reduction of this budget and shifting of funds from this to social services, for example, health and education. So first demand was this. Second was this exclusion principle. I told this in the revolt wala chapter na, ki this was an administrative issue. That one was the corruption, second was the exclusion. They were following this policy exclusion, and that due to this only they were demanding this Indianization, ये वाला provision, Indianization, because Indians were excluded from the services. ठीक है. So in the defense also, in the administration also, everywhere Indian was tried to exclude it, tried to exclude the Indians. So they were demanding that Indians should be included, and the provision should be made. For example, I told you, when these Dalhousie took over the Indian states, so all the commanders and this wazirs, and they were getting very low posts. For example, Daroga and all, they were getting only SHO. They could get at max the SHO level, not beyond that. Inspector, beyond inspector, they could not rise up, and even the DSP they could not become. So they demanded that we should be given the responsibilities of this higher post also. Then the economic critique, we all know, okay, this was the most important contribution of them. Okay, refer lecture 1. I told you what was the impact of this British policies, है ना. Those three phases: commercial, industrial, and finance, है ना, or the three land revenue policies. Okay, all those things, you for the theoretical part you can refer that. And remember these three books. You can for the mains also, these three books are important whenever you are writing the, let's say, economic impact, है ना. Drop the names of these books, है ना. Say that Dadabhai Naoroji in his book Poverty and Un-British Rule said this. M.G. Ranade in his book Essays on Colonialism said this. R.C. Dutt in his book Economic History of India said this. So this is useful for both prelims and mains. And what is the meaning of Un-British Rule? Un-British Rule means that they were saying that British rule is important for India. Na? They propagated this white man theory, white man's burden theory. And so they were saying that we were modernizing you people, and for this modernization you have to pay some of the you have to pay the price for this. And for example, the price was in the form of reduction of civil liberties, or this they were their territory were taken up, their political structure were taken up, all these things. So or they were also draining India's wealth. So Dadabhai Naoroji wrote this, that it is un-British rule. They are not modernizing us, although they are modernizing us, but they are harming us more. So he gave the logics and all those things we studied in lecture 1 in the form of economic impact. Okay. Obviously, apart from this, they might be demanding for the civil liberties and all. All those things are very obvious. So these are the main things they were demanding. And slowly, all these demands got satisfied. All those demands were accepted. For example, simultaneous exams got accepted. Maximum age got accepted. Indianization got accepted. This social services wala thing also got accepted, because this financial decentralization was done by Mayo, Lytton, and Ripon. We studied this in changes done after 1858 revolt wala. Then exclusion wala also got done. This economic wala thing was also controlled after this, because they reduced this tariff. They imposed the tariffs. I told 1924 they imposed the tariffs. With respect to this also, slowly and slowly executive, this legislative council got control over executive. Okay, and due to this reason only na, that the Nehru report was prepared, है ना, because they observed that this legislature is subservient to executive. Legislature is, if legislature is not having control over the executive na, then this executive can actually harm the people, है ना, they can actually work against the public interest. So the Nehru report was prepared, and this formed as a basis for this responsible government when this Montagu gave the statement in the August 1917 statement. Okay, and then that got gradually added as a responsible government in the form of diarchy, and it got expanded in the form of today's responsible government as a parliamentary government. Okay, so that is why we always prefer parliamentary government, because we always give preference to responsibility of executive to the legislature, because historically we have been seeing that this responsibility part is most important, and instead of stability we want this responsibility things. Okay, I think this part is over, moderates. Okay, now we'll do extremists.